Hey everyone, this is Tapan Sharma here, and welcome to a new tutorial where we'll be implementing real-time database notifications using Filament and Laravel Reverb. So yeah, we'll be achieving real-time database notifications functionality using Laravel Reverb. And along the way, we will also look at how we can define custom dashboards. And on that dashboard, as you can see, we will be defining an action. And if I click on this action, then we have a simple field for the name, which doesn't do anything. But as soon as we click on submit, then we will trigger that notification to another user. So yeah, we will be using private channels to broadcast this notification to a specific user. And as soon as I type something in here and click on submit, then we will broadcast that notification to a specific user. And I've also logged in with that user. So yeah, as you can see, I'm logged in as another user in here, which has a name of some name. And without any page refreshes, the notifications are going to be displayed here. So yeah, let's go ahead and look into that. So as soon as I click on submit, and all the services are running in the background. And now as you can see, without any page refreshes, the notification is displayed here. So yeah, we will be implementing real-time database notifications using Filament and Laravel Reverb. And I believe that you'll learn a lot of stuff along the way. So yeah, you've got an idea about the stuff that we'll be building in this course. Let's now go ahead and install and configure our project, and then we will build out the functionality accordingly. Okay, let's start things off by installing a fresh Laravel project. And as you can see in here, I'm using the Laravel installer to install a fresh Laravel project. And the name of the project in this case is Filament Reverb, since we will be looking at integrating Filament with Laravel Reverb. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit enter. And for the starter kit, I'm not going to choose any starter kit because we will be implementing real-time functionality on the Filament side. So yeah, we won't be using any starter kit. So I'm going to choose no starter kit. And the testing framework doesn't really matter in this case, but still I'm going to choose pest. And yeah, I would like to initialize a Git repository. So I'll choose yes in this case. And for the database, we can use SQLite, and you can choose any other options based on your needs. But SQLite is also a really good option for testing things out. Okay, so I'm going to choose SQLite, and I'll be right back once this finishes installing. Okay, the project has been installed. So let's cd into that, and let's open that up in our code editor. And let's go ahead and look into our env. Let's go ahead and take a look at the DB connection. So as you can see, since we chose SQLite as our database option, so the DB connection in this case is SQLite, and a new SQLite file has been created on our database folder. So yeah, all the database records will be stored in this database.sqlite file. And let's move forward and look at some other stuff. So if we go ahead and look into the broadcast connection, then as you can see, initially the value of log is set in here, and the queue connection is set to database. So yeah, all the queue related stuff will be stored in the database and then processed from there. And we will further look into this later, and everything else doesn't really matter. So yeah, let's go ahead and, okay, so we have finally installed Laravel, and let's now go ahead and install Reverb and configure our WebSocket server. And to do that, we can run artisan install broadcasting, and this is going to install and set up Reverb along with Pusha.js and Laravel Echo, and configure all the stuff necessary to implement real-time functionalities in any Laravel application. So let's go ahead and run this command. And now as you can see, this command published the broadcasting configuration file, and it also published the channels route file. And now it is asking whether we want to install Laravel Reverb. So I'm going to choose yes, and this is going to install all the dependencies necessary for running Laravel Reverb. And once that is completed, it will ask us whether we want to install the front-end dependencies, that is the node dependencies, and I'm going to choose yes in this case. And now this is going to install Pusha.js along with Laravel Echo, and we will be using these packages to listen for events on our front end. And based on that, we will perform some operations. Okay, seems like the dependencies have been installed. And now if we go ahead and look into our GitHub diff editor, so let's go ahead and look into our composer.json. Then as you can see, a new package was installed called Laravel/Reverb. And this is the only change that has been made in this file. And let's also go ahead and look into our package.json. So as you can see, Laravel Echo and Pusha.js were installed as our node dependencies. And let's also go ahead and look into the app.php. So a new route was added from the routes/channels.php. And this is the only change that is made in this file. Let's also go ahead and look into our broadcasting.php. So here, as you can see, a broadcast connection of null is being passed. And if we go ahead and look into the connections array, then as you can see, a new key was added in here for Reverb, and the driver is Reverb here, and all the other configurations are basically taken from the environment file. So I will be looking at that as well. And there are some other configurations defined as well, like for Ably and for Pusher, which are not so much important in this case. We'll be only looking into the Reverb configuration. And there's also this configuration called reverb.php created, and this file is basically related to the Laravel Reverb package. So you can go ahead and look into it, and most of the stuff are again taken from our environment file. And let's also go ahead and look into our bootstrap.js. So this basically added a simple comment and imported the echo.js file. So let's go ahead and look into that. And here, as you can see, this is basically importing echo and pusher from the respective packages and assigning the pusher variable to the pusher object, and again assigning the window.echo to a new instance of the echo class. And this is passing all these variables by again grabbing those from our environment file. And finally, we have channels.php. So here it is defining a new private channel for our user model. And we won't be looking much into this for now because we'll only broadcast to a public channel. But this is also necessary if you only want to broadcast to a single user. So for that case, we can use this private channel. And let's also go ahead and look into our env. So initially, the reverb related stuff were not defined in here. But if we go ahead and look into it now, and here, as you can see, these keys were added and respective values were also defined. And these values were also generated by the install broadcasting command. So we have the reverb app ID, the reverb app key, and the reverb app secret. So these were all generated by that command. And the reverb host is localhost. But if you go ahead and look into our app URL, then as you can see, we have a URL of filament reverb.test. So I'll just go ahead and copy that and paste that over as our reverb host. And we don't have to pass FTP or FTPS prefix because that is defined over here. And we have a reverb port of 8080. So I'll keep it like that, which is the default port. And we also have some width related stuff defined, which are again taken from these variables. So we can ignore them. Okay, we are almost done configuring our environment file. And it's finally time to test out whether Laravel Reverb is installed and configured properly. And to do that, we will be emitting an event from our backend and listen for that event on our frontend using a livewire component. So yeah, we will be using a livewire component to listen for an event, and whenever that event is dispatched, we will be dumping something on our page. So yeah, let's go ahead and install livewire package first, and then we will test out Laravel Reverb. So I'll just run composer require livewire to install the livewire package. So let's just hit enter, and yeah, let's just wait for this to install. Okay, the package has been installed. Let's now go ahead and create a new livewire component. So I'll just run artisan livewire make, and I'm just going to create a simple livewire component called sample. And this is just to test out whether Laravel Reverb is working in our project. And the reason why we are doing this is because when we try to integrate Filament with Reverb, then if we face any issues, we might have a hard time figuring out what's actually not working. So we might have an error on the Reverb side or on the Filament side. So we are just making sure that Laravel Reverb is working fine before we integrate both of these together, just to make sure that Reverb is working fine. And if we face any issues, then it's on the Filament side. So yeah, just to get rid of some possible errors that we might face in the future, we are testing things out earlier. Okay, let's just go ahead and create this sample Liver component. And while we're here, let's also go ahead and create a new event. And I'm going to define a simple event again, just to test things out. And I'm going to name this as test. So let's hit enter. And while we're here, let's also go ahead and compile our assets. So I'll just run npm run dev to compile our JavaScript and CSS files. And this is going to run in the background. And okay, let's try and go ahead and work on our event. So to broadcast this event, we need to implement should broadcast. So let's just go ahead and do that. And on the broadcast on, as you can see, a private channel has been passed. But in this case, I'm going to pass a public channel, and we can do that by just passing channel. And the channel name in this case is going to be, I'll just pass public channel just to demonstrate this. So yeah, we are dispatching this event on a public channel with the name of public channel. And on our Liver component, we can listen for this public channel, and the name of the event in this case is test. So yeah, let's go ahead and open up our sample Liver component, and here to listen for that event, we can use the Liver attributes feature, and here we can pass on. So we need to import this from Liver attributes namespace, and we want to listen for events made on echo, and the name of the channel in this case is public channel, and the event that has been dispatched from our backend is called test. So let's just go ahead and pass that. And whenever that happens, we want to execute a method. So in this case, I'm going to name this as dump. The name doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's the reason I'm passing dump. And here we just want to dump something on our page, and we can probably pass the text as dump. Okay. So what we are basically doing here is we are dispatching an event called test, and this should implement the should broadcast, so that this will broadcast this event to all the listeners. And once that happens, we will listen for that event on our Liver component, and we are listening for this test event on a public channel called public channel, and we are dumping this on our page as soon as the event is dispatched. And here, as you can see, we are dispatching this on a public channel with the name of public channel. So yeah, this could be a bit confusing, but this name and this name has to be identical, which I think you have understood already. Okay, this is done. Let's now go ahead and actually dispatch this event and test out our Laravel configuration. But before doing that, we also need to open up welcome.blade, and here we need to render our Liver component, because if we don't render our Liver component, we won't be actually able to test this out. So I'll just remove this styling and all the unnecessary markup from here, because this is not actually necessary. And here I'll just go ahead and render the Liver component. So @livewire, let's just pass the sample component. And let's also go ahead and open up the sample.blade, because we won't really know whether our component has been rendered since we are not passing anything in here. So I'll just pass sample Liver component. Let's just pass that. And one more thing to note here is on the welcome.blade, we also need to include the compiled JavaScript and CSS files, because if we don't do that, then the echo related configurations won't be included on the page, and we will get an error that Laravel echo is not found. So yeah, let's go ahead and first give this a try. Let's try to understand the error, and then we will fix that accordingly. So yeah, let's go ahead and open this up in the browser. Okay, so I've opened up the project in the browser, and let's just go ahead and open up the inspector tool. And okay, we are getting some errors. As you can see, we are getting this error called Laravel echo cannot be found. And the reason why this is happening is because we did not include the compiled CSS and JavaScript files on our welcome.blade. And if you are using a auth package like Laravel Breeze or Laravel Jetstream, then in that case, Laravel does all these kinds of work for you. So yeah, you might not know what's actually happening if we face any issues, since Laravel configures everything for us. So yeah, let's go ahead and include those CSS and JavaScript files. And we can do that by passing @vit and the location to our app.css and the app.js. And you might have seen this already in other areas of your application if you have installed Laravel Breeze or Laravel Jetstream, since both of these are configured already in those packages. So yeah, we need to include these, otherwise all the configurations that we have defined on our echo.js or bootstrap.js are included within these files, and these are compiled automatically when we run npm run dev. So yeah, once we do that, all the configurations are included now. And if we go ahead and reload, then as you can see, we are getting another kind of error called WebSocket connection to this has failed. And this is happening because we have not started our Reverb server. So let's go ahead and do that. And this indicates that everything is working fine. So let's now go ahead and run the Reverb server. And behind the scenes, we are also running npm run dev. And let's open up a new terminal session and run artisan reverb start. And I'm also going to pass the debug option because we want to see the output on the terminal. So let's just run that. And if we now go ahead and reload, then we shouldn't get any errors about WebSocket's failed connections. And we can verify that by looking into our network tab. And here, as you can see, we are making two requests, which is of type WebSocket, and we are getting a status of 101, which indicates that WebSocket is connected properly and is working fine. And we can further verify this by emitting the event called test. And whenever that happens, the method that we have defined on our livewire component will be executed and the dump should be rendered on the page. So yeah, let's go ahead and give this a try now. Okay, let's now go ahead and dispatch that event, and we can use Tinker to do that. But before doing that, let's also go ahead and look into our database status, because whenever we dispatch that event, and since on our env the queue connection is set to database, so whenever the event is dispatched, all of those events will be stored in the database. And to process those, we need to run php queue walk or php queue listen, and that command will process those events and execute those events. And once they are executed, only then everything will be broadcasted, and our listener will listen for those and grab those and execute the methods. So yeah, let's go ahead and actually dispatch that event. But first, let's go ahead and look into the database status. And then once we dispatch that event, we will again look into the database status and run php queue walk command. Okay, so this is the database of our project. As you can see, we have Filament Reverb, and currently, as you can see, we don't have any jobs in here. And now if we go ahead and dispatch that event by calling artisan tinker, so let's open up a new tinker session, and here I'll just go ahead and dispatch the event called test. Okay, let's do that. And now if we go ahead and reload our database, then as you can see, a new job is being created on our database. And if we go ahead and look into our browser, then as you can see, nothing has been dumped in here because the test event is not yet executed. And to execute that, we need to run php queue walk command. So yeah, let's also go ahead and look into that. So now let's just go ahead and terminate this session, and let's create a new terminal session again. So I'll just open up a new terminal session and run artisan queue listen. And this command is almost similar to artisan queue walk. And the only difference is when we run artisan queue walk, then to reflect any new changes on any of the files of our project, we have to restart that server. But if we run artisan queue listen, then Laravel is going to listen for any changes on any of our files. And if any file is changed, then Laravel internally is going to restart this command, and we don't have to worry about any file changes in our project. So yeah, this is a really convenient command while testing out queues in a local environment. Okay, so as soon as I run this command, this is going to process that event called test. And whenever that event is processed and executed, it is going to broadcast the event on the public channel. And whenever that happens, since we are listening for this on our livewire component, so whenever this event is dispatched on this public channel, we will go ahead and dump that over in our page. So this should be dumped on the page if everything is implemented properly. So yeah, let's go ahead and give this a try. So I'll just run artisan queue listen. And now as you can see, this processed that event and it completed the process in 30 milliseconds. And if everything is implemented properly, then without any page refreshes, this should be dumped on our page. So yeah, this is the moment of truth. Let's now go ahead and look into our browser. Okay, let's open up the browser. Then as you can see, a dump is being displayed in here, and this is coming from sample.php of line 18. So yeah, Laravel Reverb is configured and working properly, and we tested the working of this using Livewire on our front end, and now it's time to implement this on the Filament side. So yeah, let's go ahead and look into that. Okay, I'll just close this artisan queue listen command for now, and we will further look into this later. And okay, we are still running npm run dev, and we are also running the artisan reverb command. So our WebSocket server is also working. And let's now go ahead and install Filament because we want to test out real-time functionality on Filament. So I'll just run composer require filament, and along with that we will also run php artisan filament install, and we'll pass the panels option to install panels. Okay, let's hit enter, and this is going to install and configure Filament, and I'll be right back once this finishes installing. Okay, the Filament package has been installed, and now it is asking the ID of the panel. So I'm going to pass an ID of admin, which is going to be the default panel. Okay, let's hit enter, and everything is installed successfully. And now let's go ahead and test out the real-time functionality. But before doing that, we also need to publish the configuration file of FilamentPHP. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So artisan vendor publish. Okay, let's also pass PHP at the beginning because I need some auto completions. Okay, so to publish the configuration file of Filament, we need to run PHP artisan vendor publish, and the tag in this case is going to be filament config. So let's hit enter, and this is going to publish the configuration file of Filament. So let's go ahead and open that up, and here as you can see, a comment has been added in here for broadcasting. So by oncomment the Laravel echo configuration, we can connect Filament to any pusher compatible WebSocket server, and this will allow your users to receive real-time notifications. So yeah, the comment is self-explanatory, and now we need to uncomment this configuration. But you might have noticed a few things in here, like the broadcaster in this case is pusher, but we want to configure this with Laravel Reverb. So I'm going to pass Reverb in this case, and there are also other configurations defined, but they are defined for pusher. So instead of pusher, I'm going to pass Reverb on all of these configurations. So let's just go ahead and pass that. Okay, let me type that correctly. So Reverb. So the key in this case is going to be with Reverb app key. The cluster doesn't really matter, and we don't have this defined on our environment file, but it's going to work even if we don't pass that. The WS host is going to be with Reverb host. The WS port is going to be with Reverb port, and these two are same. And the auth endpoint is API v1 broadcasting auth, and we need to pass broadcasting auth. I'm not sure which is the correct value in this case, but this is working, and I think passing a default value of this is also going to work. I'm not sure about that, but the disable stats is set to true. The encrypted status can be set conditionally based on the protocol that we are using, that is HTTP or HTTPS protocol. And if you go ahead and look into our echo.js, then here, as you can see, the broadcaster is set to Reverb, and the WS port and WSS port are grabbed from the with Reverb port. And if they are not available, then a default value of 80 and 443 has been passed. So yeah, we can basically implement the same functionality on our filament.php. So the WS port is gonna be a default value of 80. So let's pass that, and the WSS port is gonna be 443. And the encrypted and forced TLS values can be set conditionally. So here, as you can see, this is basically grabbing the with Reverb scheme. And if it is HTTPS, then the forced TLS value will be set to true. And if it is HTTP, then it will be set to false. And we can again verify that by looking into our env. Okay, we don't have that here, but if we go ahead and look into our reverb.php, so here, as you can see, the use TLS option has been passed based on the Reverb scheme. And if the Reverb scheme is HTTPS, then the use TLS value will be set to true. And if it is not, it will be set to false. So I'll just go ahead and copy this implementation and paste that over on our filament.php. So for the encrypted, I'll just pass this condition, and for the forced TLS as well, I'll just pass that condition. And based on the protocol that we are using, this will be either set to true or false. Okay, that's done. And everything else is not much necessary for our case. Okay, let's now go ahead and test this out. So we are still running our WebSocket server, and we have created a panel already, but we haven't defined a filament user yet. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'll just run artisan make filament user. So the name in this case is going to be admin. Let's just pass that. The email is going to be admin@admin.com. The password is going to be password. Okay, that's done. Let's now go ahead and log in and open up our admin panel. Okay, let's now go ahead and actually log in. So admin@admin.com. The password is password. And to verify that WebSockets is working in Filament admin panel as well, we can again open up the network tab. And here, as you can see, a network request of type WebSocket has been sent, and the status is 101. So it means that WebSocket is configured properly. And yeah, let's now go ahead and actually try to send real-time notification. And to test this out, what I will do is I'll just define a custom action in here, and we'll just try to mimic an action. And when the user clicks on submit, then we will send a notification, and we will make that real time. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So to define a custom action, we need to define a custom dashboard page, and on that page we can define a custom action. And to define a custom dashboard, we need to create our own dashboard class, and we need to extend the default dashboard. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So on our app, let's go ahead and define a new folder called Filament, and inside that, let's create a new folder again called pages. And inside that, we can create a page called dashboard.php. And to populate this class, what I will do is I'll just go ahead and follow the documentation. So yeah, let's go ahead and look into the documentation. Okay, so I've opened up the dashboard page of the panel builder section. And if we go ahead and look into the bottom of this page, then there's a section called customizing the dashboard page. And as you can see, if you want to customize the dashboard class, we need to create a new file at app filament pages, and the name is dashboard.php, and we need to extend the default dashboard class, which is the filament pages dashboard. So yeah, let's just go ahead and copy this whole block of code and paste that over on our custom dashboard. And now this is extending the default dashboard class, and we need to let Filament know that we are using a custom dashboard class, and we can easily do that by overriding that on our admin panel provider. So let's just go ahead and do that. So by default, this is grabbing the dashboard class from the filament pages namespace. So what I will do is I'll just go ahead and get rid of this pages prefix and import that from the app filament pages dashboard namespace. And if we try to open this up, then as you can see, our own implementation is opened, which means that it is defined properly now. And here we can define a custom header action, and on that action we will be mimicking a simple action, and when the user clicks on submit, then we will send a real-time notification to other user. So yeah, let's go ahead and continue working on this. Okay, behind the scenes, I just went ahead and defined a custom action, and we can define custom actions on our dashboard class by overriding this get header actions method. And this is going to pass an array of data. And here we are just passing a custom action, which doesn't do anything right now. We just have a simple form of type text input, and we have a name, and on the action we are not actually doing anything. So yeah, this is really basic stuff, and we just have a simple action which doesn't do anything. And now when the user clicks on submit button, then we want to send a real-time notification to other user, and we want to see that without any page refreshes. And we will be using Laravel Reverb to achieve that. And to know about how we can broadcast real-time messages in Filament, we can again follow the documentation. So yeah, let's go ahead and look into the documentation. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the notifications page. And here we have the broadcast notification section. And to broadcast a notification to another user, as you can see, this is grabbing the currently authenticated user and passing the notification make. The title is being set accordingly, and a broadcast method has been defined, and on that method the recipient is being passed. So under the hood, this is basically using private channels to broadcast this notification to this specific user, and there are multiple ways to define this, but I'm going to choose this because this is a really simple implementation. So once the user clicks on submit, we just want to send a notification to that user. So let's just go ahead and import this notification from filament notifications notification namespace. The title doesn't really matter in this case, but the recipient matters because we are broadcasting this to a single specific user. So what I will do is I'll just go ahead and grab that from our database, and we only have one user at this point. But what we can do is we can create another user by calling artisan make filament user. So let's just go ahead and create a new user, and the name in this case is going to be some name. The email is going to be somemail@gmail.com. Let's just pass that. The password is going to be password. Okay, it doesn't really matter. But if we go ahead and look into our database now, let's open up our users table. Then as you can see, we have two users now, and the sum name has an ID of 2. So yeah, we are basically grabbing that user and broadcasting this notification to the user ID 2. And let's just go ahead and pass that user over here. Okay, so as soon as the user submits this action, then we will find that user with the ID of 1 and broadcast this notification to this specific user, which has an ID of 2. And if we again look into our database, then we don't have any jobs in here. So currently the jobs table is empty. But as soon as we perform this action, then this will be stored into the database. And to send that notification, we need to run the php artisan qwalk command. So yeah, the workflow is almost same, but the implementation is a bit different this time. And okay, let's just go ahead and save our admin panel provider. Otherwise, we won't see our new dashboard implementation. And okay, let's go ahead and open up our project. So this is the dashboard, our custom dashboard, and here we have a custom action. And let's also go ahead and log in with the user ID 2. But before doing that, let's just go ahead and dispatch something from here. So I'll just click on submit, and now the notification should be broadcasted to the user ID too, but we need to process that using PHP artisan queue work, and we can verify that by looking into our database. So as you can see, a new job has been added in here, which is of type broadcast notification. So filament notifications, broadcast notification, and this has to be processed using PHP artisan queue work. So yeah, unless we process this, the notification is not going to be sent. And let's just go ahead and verify whether our Reverb server is working or not. So we are still running npm run dev, and we are also running our WebSocket server. Okay, and now we need to log in with the user ID too. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are currently logged in as admin. I'll just sign out and log in with somemail@gmail.com. Sign in with the somemail details. And now as soon as we process that event, the notification should be displayed in here if everything is implemented properly. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I'll just go ahead and run PHP artisan queue listen, and this is going to process that job. And as soon as that is processed, it will broadcast that event to the user ID 2. And since we are currently logged in as user ID 2, the notification should be displayed without making any page refreshes. So yeah, let's go ahead and give this a try. So I'll just run PHP artisan queue listen, and now as you can see, that was processed, and without any page refreshes, we got a notification that it was saved successfully. So yeah, everything is working fine. And the last thing that I want to implement here is database notifications. So yeah, that's the only thing remaining now. And let's also go ahead and look into the documentation, because yeah, we want to look into the documentation. Everything is documented properly. So to implement database notifications, we need to run PHP artisan make notifications table. So I'll just go ahead and copy that, and I'll just terminate this command for now, which is the PHP artisan queue listen command, and later we will restart it. So I'll just paste the code that I just copied, and the migration file has been created. Okay, let's go ahead and look into that. So on our migrations, a new migration file was created for the notifications table. So let's just go ahead and run PHP artisan migrate. And what else do we need? Okay, we don't have to do any of this because it is all implemented already. And okay, we also need to disable database polling. And okay, it is not actually mentioned in here, but if you go ahead and look into the panel builder and open up the notifications page, so to implement database notifications, we also need to pass database notifications on our admin panel provider. So let's just go ahead and define that. So let's open up admin panel provider and pass database notifications. So this is going to actually implement database notifications, and we can verify that by opening up our project. And if we reload, then as you can see, we have a section to display the database notifications. And we also need to disable polling, because by default, certain polling is being applied. So yeah, to verify whether real-time notifications functionality is working, we need to disable polling. And we can look into the docs again. So to disable that, we can just pass database notifications polling and pass a null value to it. So instead of 30 seconds, let's pass null. And if we go ahead and look into the underlying class, then as you can see, we can either pass string or closure or a null value. So yeah, if we pass null value, then it will be disabled. Okay, that's done. And what else do we need? Okay, let's just navigate back, and to send database notifications, we can just call send to database and pass the recipient. And to implement real-time notifications, as you can see, there's a section called using echo to receive new database notifications with WebSockets. What we need to do is we need to dispatch this database notification sent event, and we also need to pass a recipient. So yeah, everything is almost same with a few changes, and everything should work as expected. So yeah, let's just go ahead and implement this. I'll just copy this whole block of code and paste that over on our dashboard. So once we get that user, I'll just remove this block of code, or maybe I'll just comment it out for now, and I'll just paste that and the title is saved successfully. And also want to pass a duration or probably seconds with a value of 10, and we want to send it to this specific user. So let's just pass that. And once that is done, we also need to dispatch the database notification sent event. So let's just go ahead and import that, and we want to dispatch this to the user of ID 2. So yeah, that's done, and this is of type success. So let's just go ahead and pass that as well. And it's finally time to give this a try. So we are trying out database notifications now. We just looked at simple notifications which are not stored in the database, and now we are trying out real-time database notifications. So yeah, let's go ahead and give this a try. So again, we are not running the php artisan qwork command yet. So we'll look into the database status, and then we will process those. So yeah, let's just go ahead and open up our project, and again I'll sign out and sign in with the admin because we need to trigger those notifications from the admin account. Okay, and now I'll just go ahead and click on update profile, write something, click on submit, and now this should trigger the database notifications. And again, we can verify that by looking into our database. So let's just go ahead and reload. So as you can see, we have two records. One is of ID 4, and this is of type filament notifications database notification. And we also have another record which is of type filament notifications events database notification sent. So yeah, there's two types of jobs, and this is all implemented by Filament. We don't have to worry about that. And as soon as we process these events, then the database notification should be seen on the recipient side, which is user ID 2, and yeah, they should be visible without making any page refreshes. So yeah, let's go ahead and give this a try. So again, we'll go ahead and log out and log in with the user ID 2. So email is somemail@gmail.com. The password is password. Click on sign in. And now as you can see, we don't have any database notifications yet. And I'm not going to refresh this page. And if everything is implemented properly, then without any page refreshes, the database notification should be visible in here. So yeah, let's go ahead and process those jobs using Laravel queues. Okay, let's now go ahead and run PHP artisan queue listen. So I'll just pass artisan queue listen. And since we have a duration of 10 seconds, so yeah, they should be visible for a longer period of time. And as soon as I hit this command, those two jobs will be processed, and then the events will be broadcasted and they will be listened by the user ID 2, and then the changes will be reflected accordingly in the DOM. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit enter. And now as you can see, those two jobs were processed, and yeah, without any page refreshes, we have our notification being displayed in here. So yeah, everything is working fine, and we have finally implemented real-time database notifications in FilamentPHP. And if we go ahead and look into the network request, then as you can see, the WebSocket request is being made, which is of status 101. So yeah, everything is implemented properly, and yeah, we have a notification. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful and you learn some new stuff along the way. And if you want to learn more about Filament, then I have a dedicated course about Filament PHP, which has been getting really good responses, and you'll learn a lot of stuff along the way. Just like we implemented real-time notifications, we'll be covering a lot of stuff in this course. So yeah, you can just go ahead and look into the course landing page, and you'll get an idea about the stuff that we'll be covering in this course. And I'll be linking my course in the description below. So yeah, make sure to check that out, and I hope that this was helpful. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.